Hello kind people of YouTube and welcome back to another video. Excuse me if I kind of rush through this video today a bit. I've had a very long and exhausting day, but I'm determined to keep you guys updated on the news. So let us start by looking at the markets and then we'll look at some articles, and most of today will be about Ripple and xRP since they have their Swell event today, so be warned. Anyway, let's take a look at the markets first. Let's refresh this right here. We see the markets continue to go ever so slightly down. This is more or less the same story we saw yesterday. Pretty much everything ever so slightly in the red, just about 1%. Some tokens have managed to gain a tiny bit. Bitcoin Cash is up 0.28%, Monero 1.39%, IOTA 0.31%, but no one is really making any spectacular gains or making very large losses. So all in all, it's just not a lot of movement going on right now. The market cap is at 219 billion, almost 220 billion. We saw it inch towards 225, but then stop itself for a while. Still significantly better than the 185 billion we saw a couple of weeks ago. Bitcoin dominance still relatively low for recent standards at 51.5%. Most notably here, we do not see xRP benefiting from the good news it has gotten today. A lot of people predicted that both the Swell event going on right now, and it was yesterday and today, I think it is still going on in America right now, and that xRapid going live, which, spoiler alert, it actually did go live now, would push the price instantly up. Now, I have been warning that that might not happen because they might roll xRapid out slowly but surely, and that is exactly what was announced today. And I think we're seeing a tiny bit of a backlash because people were disappointed by what they have heard out of Swell so far. People just had unrealistic expectations for what would be announced. Now, of course, they could still bring out something major to close the conference, but the way it's looking right now, we might not be seeing the price jumps that some people anticipated from these news. I think it's going to be a slower process, but it's still looking good, down less than 1%. That is all we can hope for on a normal day. Let's start looking by Let's start the articles by looking at an analysis of the Bitcoin price. This, once again, CoinDesk, I like their market analysis, their technical analysis, because they're simply much more knowledgeable on that than I am. All these articles, of course, linked in the description. Anyway, let's start reading here. Bitcoin's price looks vulnerable to modest slippage in the next 24 hours as its persistent failure to pass a key moving average hurdle could embolden the bears. The leading cryptocurrency has been in a narrow sideways drift in recent days, with the 50-day exponential moving average proving a tough nut to crack since Saturday. Bitcoin's inability to cross the 50-day hurdle indicates that the bullish move from the September 19th low of $6,100 has lost momentum. As a result, the door is now open for the bears to make their presence felt over the next 24 hours, and prices could be forced down to $6,300. As of writing, Bitcoin is changing hands at $6,580 on Bitfinex, having faced rejection at the 50-day EMA level of $6,649 earlier today. As seen on the daily chart, the 50-day EMA has been capping the upside in Bitcoin since late September. It is worth noting that Bitcoin is trading below all three major moving averages, 50-day, 100-day and 200-day, which could be considered a bearish sign. However, these averages are flatlined, which indicates that Bitcoin has lacked a clear directional bias for far too long. As a result, a big move in either direction is overdue. And keep in mind, in the last quarter of the year is where we usually see prices explode, so might we be looking at that again soon? Anyway, back to the article. Over on the 4-hour chart, Bitcoin is trading just below the lower edge of the ascending triangle, meaning the bull failure at the 50-day EMA is beginning to prove costly. Furthermore, the relative strength index has fallen back below 50 in bearish territory. A downside break would be confirmed if the current or the next 4-hour candle closes below the triangle support. In that case, Bitcoin could fall quickly to $6,328. And their view for the short and midterm? Bitcoin's persistent failure to move past the 50-day EMA could end up yielding an ascending triangle breakdown on the 4-hour chart. An ascending triangle breakdown, if confirmed, would open up downside towards the immediate support of $6,328. A violation there would expose the next support lined up at $6,100. On the higher side, acceptance above the 50-day EMA of $6,649 would put the bulls back in a commanding position. And now if we're looking at the prices, it's not looking like the bulls are in control right now. But everything is pointing towards the price flatlining, and that after such a long time of falling prices, flatlining should be counted as a very good sign in my opinion. That means the market is just waiting to explode up. Anyway, let's look at Swell. Of course, Swell, the big Ripple conference once a year, always has big guests, always has big reveals. And today they dropped a bombshell after, or rather yesterday. Sorry, it's since this happened in America and I'm in Germany, for me, I found out about this today in the morning, but American time it was yesterday the 1st, for me it was the 2nd. Anyway, they dropped the bombshell that after we had already been told that xRapid would go live within the next month or so, that it's already live now. I think many of us expected later in October. Anyway, let us read the article and let's see the details here. After a series of highly publicized pilots, 3 companies are now making commercial use of Ripple's xRapid product. xRapid employs the digital asset XRP, using it as a bridge currency in cross-border payments, which according to the company reduces the cost and increases the speed of these payments by boosting liquidity. The 3 companies, Mercury FX, Kralex, and Catalyst Corporate Credit Union, were announced by Ripple CEO Brett Garlinghouse on stage at Ripple's Swell conference in San Francisco today, marking the first time companies have put the product to commercial use. This is it, guys. This is it actually being live, being used for real-world payments. Mercury FX, which helps clients send and receive international payments, and Kralex, which facilitates remittances between the US and Mexico, had previously announced pilots using xRapid. Catalyst Corporate Federal Credit Union, which provides a range of financial services to around 1,400 credit unions, primarily in the western and southwestern US, is a new partner for Ripple. A number of other firms have trialed xRapid in the past, including Western Union, MoneyGram, Via Americas, and IDT. These firms are not putting xRapid into production at this time, Ripple SVP of product Ashish Bela, I hope I pronounced that correctly, told CoinDesk, but he added, "We are still working on next steps with some of them." The announcement is an important milestone for XRP, a digital asset first created by Ripple's founders, though the company was going by a different name at the time, in 2012. Ripple holds the majority of the XRP tokens in existence, selling them continuously through its subsidiary XRP2. XRP is currently the 3rd most valuable cryptocurrency by market cap, based on investors' bet that Ripple's product suite will eventually displace the current infrastructure for cross-border payments, including Nostro and Vostro accounts, which banks must pre-fund with local currencies, and the aging Swift messaging system. Speaking to CoinDesk, Bela outlined how the current system works. Today, if you want to move money, let's just say into Mexico, the ways to do it were built in the 1960s. It really hasn't changed. Specifically, he continued, you have to open up a bank account in Mexico and you have to deposit pesos in that account, and then you pay out locally. And that whole process sometimes takes weeks, and the setting up of a bank account is a whole treasury operation that takes months to get going. In contrast, xRapid processes cross-border payments by XRP, with the sending party putting fiat into a cryptocurrency exchange, converting it to XRP, and converting that XRP to the receiving party's desired fiat currency. Sorry, my screen just tried turning itself off. I can't edit this out because I don't edit my videos, I'm sorry. Anyway, back to the article. Ripple recently announced 3 exchange partnerships to facilitate this process. Bittrex for US dollars, Bitso for Mexican pesos, and Coins.ph for Philippine pesos. Market makers on the exchanges who are not affiliated with Ripple act as counterparties for fiat to XRP trades. In a recent interview, Mercury FX founder and director Alastair Constant said xRapid was a revelation, adding that it cut the time needed to send a payment from the UK to Mexico from 2 days to 2 minutes. If xRapid resembles bullet trains, Constant said, the incumbent system comprised of Swift and correspondent banks is like pushing oranges around in a wheelbarrow. As those who follow XRP's enthusiasts on social media know, perhaps the main thesis for investing in XRP is that it will eventually enjoy wide, if not universal, adoption by banks for cross-border payments. A number of banks have expressed interest in Ripple's xCurrent product, and Santander has incorporated it into a consumer-facing mobile app. But xCurrent does not use XRP, and Ripple has sent mixed signals in the past regarding banks' interest in xRapid. I don't think we've seen mixed signals there, but I've said this a few times before, and you can tell it in this article again. It's reporting on a generally positive thing. There's a bit of a negative subconscious spin to it that comes out in the need to say some things that, or in the way some things are phrased in here. Burler told CoinDesk in a recent interview, "We built xCurrent as a product to get banks started. We'll start them using fiat transfers, and then we'll introduce later on the ability to use digital assets through xRapid. So we're layering on xRapid on top of xCurrent." On the other hand, David Schwartz, who was Ripple's chief cryptographer before becoming CTO in July, said in March that xRapid is not aimed at banks. Now, this article is setting those up as if they were contradictory. They're not necessarily contradictory. Saying that xRapid will be used by banks and that the plan is to onboard banks by using xCurrent first doesn't mean that xRapid wasn't necessarily primarily aimed at banks, or that it wasn't primarily developed for banks in the first place. Who a product was primarily aimed for and who ends up using it and who is turned into the target audience do not have to be the same thing. Anyway, back to the article, and they continue to try and find contradictions here. Yet in June, Garlinghouse predicted that dozens of banks would adopt xRapid by the end of 2019. Muddying the picture further, Schwartz said just a week later that banks may be slow to adopt distributed ledgers due to privacy and scalability concerns. Once again, not a contradiction. Garlinghouse predicted dozens of banks. By the way, he said he hoped dozens of banks would be adopting xRapid. And Schwartz said that banks might be slow to adopt these technologies. Yes, he was talking about banks in general. There are thousands of banks. And Garlinghouse is hoping for dozens of those to adopt xRapid in a year. So once again, no contradiction here. None at all. This article is searching so hard for contradictions where there are none. And back to the article once again. Outside of the question of bank adoption, Ripple's messaging has sometimes made it difficult to parse who is putting its products to use and how. A press release from January said, Ripple is proud to announce that 2 new partners, IDT Corporations and Mercury FX, will now use xRapid to settle retail remittances and corporate transactions quickly. IDT is a publicly traded telecommunications firm. That announcement did not specify that the companies were not using xRapid commercially, with the exception of a quote from an IDT official that said the company was excited to pilot xRapid. Following today's announcement that xRapid is commercially available though, it is clear in retrospect that Mercury FX wasn't using the product commercially. No, this has always been clear, because we knew that xRapid was not properly live yet, that it was only in a testing stage. Anyway, back to the article once again. Constant explains that the company has been using xRapid to process payments to a charity in Mexico in what he called a test phase. Burler declined to say how or whether Ripple is monetizing xRapid. Now, this could simply be because they are contractually obligated not to share information like that. Usually the exact details of how much banks are paying, like remittance providers and stuff like that, are kept secret. That is not, those are trade secrets. That's not the kind of stuff that is being publicly said. So it's not at all weird that Ripple isn't telling us how or to which degree xRapid is being monetized by them. Constance of Mercury FX asked if his firm was paying for use of the services, said, "We've been using the XRP ledger on the basis that the money is not important right now, it's the dream that we're chasing, that is." That is a beautiful non-answer. Ripple's Director of Corporate Communications, Tom Chanik, said in an email that xRapid is part of the RippleNet suite of products, which is sold to financial institutions. As noted above, Ripple sells XRP on a continual basis through a subsidiary, so all else being equal, an increase in demand for XRP would boost Ripple's revenues. Asked if demand for XRP could be expected to rise as a result of xRapid being deployed commercially, Bela said, "The xRapid product leverages XRP, so if you are doing $1 million of payment through xRapid, that is $1 million of XRP that you would need." And keep in mind here, that means that that million is bought and then instantly sold again. So there would actually be 2 transactions for $1 million each. However, he noted that institutions like Mercury FX do not need to hold XRP themselves. According to Constance, though, Mercury FX does hold XRP as an investment. Rather, independent market makers trading on exchanges are the ones who need to hold XRP, Birla said. Now, this is very good for the amount of money flowing through the networks, because if it's happening on exchanges and if it's not happening over the counter, we will actually see it. When we go on CoinMarketCap, we will see it as part of the volume. We will, everything that happens there will be counted as part of the volume. And xRapid being live could be a part of the reason why XRP has a volume of around 913 million right now, when it usually has a lower volume than that. I'm a bit too lazy to, let's actually look for the volume. Here. Volume is up. We don't know exactly when it was turned on. Some of this, at least this spike up here, seems to have been a result of the price spike and all the new interest, but it has been consistently higher than, look, right now it's at 4 or 5 times what it used to be normally. So that could be part of the reason why we see the volume up significantly already. And that is with just a few companies. Anyway, I think this is absolutely spectacular news that we have xRapid live now. I didn't think they would be going live with 100 banks sending billions and billions through it every single day. Because the reality is they have been testing it for a while. Yes, they have been running extensive tests. But the way you want to roll out any huge financial product like this is you roll it out slowly. You need to have a real world test period where just a few companies are using it for a relatively small amount, because that way if anything does still go wrong, you have time to correct it before billions and billions are moving through it every single day. Because if a major flaw were to come to light, or if there were suddenly legal issues coming up, that once hundreds of companies are using it, that could be catastrophic for XRP and for Ripple as a company. That could ruin everything. That could ruin their image. That could end everything. So rolling something like this out slowly but surely, very good. Of course, companies also want to see precedent. Companies want to see other companies successfully using something before they sign on themselves. So I'm sure if these few companies are having successes with XRP, with xRapid, more companies will follow relatively quickly. We will probably see a steady stream of new announcements every couple of weeks or months of new major companies signing on for xRapid. Anyway, this is very good news. I think people were expecting too much. People were expecting too much. People were expecting for $1 trillion a day to suddenly flow through XRP from one day to the next, and that is not going to happen. This is going to be slow, but it's going to pick up more and more and more and more and more and more and more. It's only going up from here. And this is the first step, and we should be celebrating. We should be celebrating this. Anyway, let's this video is already getting pretty long, so let's continue on quickly. Venture capital investment in blockchain and crypto up 280% in 2018, report shows. Now, of course, 2018 not completely over yet, so we will need to look back on this when the year is actually over. But I always like to report on, talk about stories about more money flowing into crypto, more investment in crypto, more adoption of crypto. So let's take a quick look here. Traditional venture capital investment in blockchain and crypto firms has almost tripled in the first 3 quarters of 2018, according to a new report published September 30th. Dia, I don't know how to pronounce this company, cites data from PitchBook that indicates that blockchain and crypto-related firms have raised almost $3.9 billion in VC capital in so far this year, 280% rise as compared with last year. The rise comes not just in terms of an increasing number of deals, but also in the burgeoning median value of each, which has grown by over $1 million this year. The combined total of the 10 largest deals in 2018 came to $1.3 billion, with 9 of these representing traditional equity investments, rather than purchases of utility crypto tokens. The outlier was the Definity token, which raised a combined $163 million from VC investors. I'm not going to try to read out that name, Hashed and Polychain Capital. PitchBook's figures revealed that Barry Silber's digital currency group was by far the most prolific investor from the VC sector. closing over 110 deals in the crypto and blockchain space this year. DCG outflanked both Blockchain Capital and Pantera Capital, whose combined deals clocked in at 100. Other strong investors included VC firms, that's the same guy again, I'm not gonna try that, that is a Chinese. These are just all words I can't pronounce. And Future Perfect Ventures, alongside active angels Tim Draper, famous of course, Naval Ravikant, probably wrong, Roger Ver, and Barry Silbert. Beyond these major players, DR reports that close to 2,000 investors have closed deals with at least one blockchain firm this year. The 50 most active of these have invested in at least 8. In terms of investor profiles, 52% of investors were not exclusively focused on the crypto and blockchain sector, but sealed their deals as part of a more diverse portfolio. This is important. This is very, very important. This means mainstream investors, mainstream traditional investors, and their money flowing into crypto. It's not just crypto people, it's traditional money, traditional finance flowing in. Lastly, DR also analyzed the geographic distribution of the VC capital that flows into blockchain, with US-based investors representing the lion's share at 79%, followed by 12% from China and 2% from South Korea and Singapore respectively. DR's new report also includes a section on the phenomenon of new banking operations that aim to facilitate the blockchain industry, whether blockchain-exclusive banks built from the ground up, banks that integrate fiat and crypto services, or the rising number of crypto-related firms that are securing banking licenses. As reported earlier today, South Korea's largest VC firm, Korea Investment Partners, has invested in its first blockchain startup, one that specializes in harnessing the technology for supply chain management solutions. KIP is known for its investments in high-ranking firms that include Naver, Korea's largest search engine, as well as owner of the popular Japanese messaging app Line, and Korean messaging giant Kakao, among others. Keep in mind, Line, of course, has their own crypto token and is building their own network for dApps. And Naver isn't just a search engine, Naver is a lot of stuff. Naver is the Google of Korea. Naver is offering TV shows and music and everything. They have everything. It's their Google. Anyway, this just shows us the trend coming in. This much faith from investors in the markets. Another thing we should be celebrating here. That just means that all these top investors with all these resources, with all these experts and on staff, see so much potential in this industry that it grows. It has doubled every year since 2016 essentially. Well, it has more than doubled this year, and it only looks like this will continue. We are still at the birth of this. We got in early. Even if other people got in before many of us, we still got in early. Anyway, last but not least, once again we are back to Swell, and this year Bill Clinton was the keynote speaker. Now, this is not a politics channel, I don't want to get political here, so let us talk about this completely regardless of what you think about his policies, his political stances, or his presidency. And let's just talk about his statements right here and what him being the keynote speaker means for Ripple. Former US President Bill Clinton took the stage at a cryptocurrency industry conference Monday to offer words of warning to lawmakers seeking to regulate what he characterized as a promising technology advance. On stage at Ripple's Swell conference in San Francisco, Clinton was joined by Gene Sperling, a former White House advisor who sits on Ripple's board of directors. Clinton, who served as US President from 1993 to 2001, was the top speaker at the event, which saw former Federal Reserve Chair Ben Bernanke take the stage last year. Indeed, the company has been pushing into establishment circles with particular enthusiasm in recent months. Just days ago, it was reported that Ripple and others had created the Securing America's Internet of Value Coalition, an advocacy group that will pay its DC lobbying firm partly in XRP. During the question and answer session with Sperling, Clinton touched on a wide range of topics such as the cybersecurity challenges facing the US government. He also discussed topics seemingly outside the bounds of a financial technology conference, including gun laws, foreign policy, and his recently published novel. Now you have to keep in mind here, when a major politician or former politician has speaking engagements like this, they are always part self-promotion, so it makes sense that he would speak a bit about his pet topics and whatever he has to promote right now, in this case his novel. Yet perhaps most relevant for the audience at Swell was Clinton's remark about the disparity of access to new technologies like blockchain as they develop and grow, pointing to the emergence of e-commerce solutions in the late 1990s as a parallel. He remarked, the more you develop new technologies like blockchain, AI technologies, robotic technologies, the more the disparity of access is going to be felt. He also acknowledged the sentiment that new technologies can be abused, hinting at the concerns that cryptocurrencies can be used by terrorists or other criminals to launder money. Referring to similar concerns over technologies like the Global Positioning System, GPS, Clinton noted that there needs to be an intelligent effort to identify the downsides, and that you can't apply an old regulatory regime to a new technology. You end up killing the goose that laid the golden egg, he went on to say. On the topic of blockchain itself, Clinton remarked that this whole blockchain deal has the potential it does only because it is applicable across national borders, income groups. He went on to say, "The permutations and possibilities are staggeringly great, but we could ruin it all by negative identity politics and economic and social policy." Now, I have not yet watched his whole keynote address here, but the bits that they have quoted here I can more or less get fully behind. And I think it's very good to see a former US president say these things about blockchain technology, put so much support behind it, and I fully agree with the position that you need a new regulatory framework. You can't just force old regulations on new technology. We've tried doing that with the internet, and we're still trying to figure out a proper legal situation for a lot of things that have to do with the internet. We're still in that process, so it's going to take time. It's going to take a while. But the thing is, you need something new, and you can't be too strict. I mean, he does point out over-regulation cannot happen. If you over-regulate, you are killing something. And I can get fully behind him here, and I think seeing the former US president speak, not just at a crypto event, he's not just giving a speech at the UN supporting crypto, but he is going to Ripple's Swell event, their flagship conference, associated with the xRapid token, and holding the keynote address. Now, of course, they paid him for this, obviously, but he would have said no if he felt he couldn't support Ripple. So seeing this, very, very beautiful. And this is one of those things, once again, that will be reported on by mainstream press, and that will bring good, positive attention to both the crypto market in general and to Ripple and the xRapid token in particular. And with this beautiful little bit of news, I'm gonna end this video. As always, thank you so much for watching. All the links to these articles are in the description. Make sure to subscribe if you want more videos like this. I put them out every day. If you like this channel and want to support it, there's some links where you can make minor donations if you'd like to. Anything is appreciated, both in crypto and through PayPal. Also my social media links, Twitter, Facebook, in the description, and an email address where you can ask me questions that I might include in a question and answer video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you guys soon.